Now, our next topic is heartbreaking, distressing and troubling to say the least. No parent should lose their child to bullying, let alone suicide. But it has happened and it is happening. CBS News in America recently reported on an 8-year-old child who took his life after two days prior. He was actually a victim of bullying in his school. Ladies, you send your children to school hoping that, you know, you're going to see them thrive. And when you hear of stories like this,
it's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking.
It's just devastating.
8 years old.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's happening? What do you think's happening, Rachel?
I don't know. It was just heartbreaking to read the story and I just felt for the mother because everything you do is for your child's survival. And just watching this, reading this story about, actually basically what happened was there was this child, he was bullied in the bathroom by some older kids and to the point where he was knocked unconscious.
Yes.
Yeah.
7 minutes.
7 minutes. Yes, I think 7.5 minutes. The principal found him there, took him to the nurse and they called the mother in, but the mother was only told that the little boy had fainted. Yeah, so she didn't actually understand everything that had happened. With her son. She didn't take him to the hospital thinking that it was, you know, something minor. And then 2 days later, he committed suicide.
But how sad that the school was aware that he was being bullied and
didn't say anything.
They didn't do anything. They didn't say anything. And then 2 days later, obviously, I mean, reading between the lines, obviously it continued when he went back to school for him to take his own life.
I just can't imagine as a mother because if you knew that, you know, the mama bear in you would come out and you would have every way possible.
I would be the raging cougar.
If she would have just... cougar.
Sorry, but, you know, like a raging... I would have just been on it.
But yeah, if she would have really understood what was happening, like how much... I just can't imagine because I'm just putting myself... If she would have understood what had happened, how much she would have intervened on behalf of her son.
That evening, she didn't know. He was vomiting. And so then she decided to take him to the hospital. It wasn't until she got a police report that the incident, that she knew what was happening to her child at school. That's definitely not the way that any parent wants to find out that their kid's getting bashed.
But they don't find out. That's the problem. The schools are obviously in this case and in other cases that I've read about, hide the fact that the children are being bullied because they don't want to be sued for this. And then it continues on. The children are not being disciplined. The bullies are not being disciplined. You know, and you just go, I know bullying's been around for years and years and years, but it just seems more prevalent these days than what it was when I was at school.
Well, it seems like the consequence of it. Like, I was just shocked that the little boy knew how to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Like,
At 8 years old.
Yeah, that he understood the steps to take to be successful.
And it seems to be a common thing that young kids are committing suicide. How do they learn about this?
I guess the internet.
Good old internet.
Unfortunately.
And you wonder about the conversations that we're having as parents with our children. Are we hiding from these conversations? Are we?
I think the fact is that, I mean, most parents grew up in a completely different era and they just don't know the extent of what is happening on chat rooms.
You think we're caught up? We're too busy working? We're too busy trying to provide for our families? That we're not looking at what is happening in our children's lives?
Yep.
Or maybe just, I don't know, I was having this discussion with my mom this morning because it was so heartbreaking. I was just trying to process it. And I was just saying to her, I wonder if parents are even creating this environment where kids can have these conversations. And how do we create environments where kids could come home and say, hey, Mom, I'm being bullied? Or was this little kid so scared that if he said something, it might make the bullying worse?
Does it come back to our culture? You know, as young boys, are we putting too much pressure on them to man up?
To not cry.
Don't cry.
And that happened to my son. He wasn't being bullied necessarily, but he was having a hard time at school because, you know, my kids like me are not very tall. And one of the counsellors said to him, to his face, man up. And I went off. But I just think, you know, not all boys and not all girls are stereotyped. We have tough girls and we have soft men, and we just have to allow children to be children and to allow them to have their own personalities and listen to them, listen behind what they're saying.
Oh, that's a really important point, I think. I don't know, you have much more experience parenting, but what do you mean by listening behind, you know, what
they'll tell you something, but you actually have to hear what they're saying, what they're not saying. Look at them and understand that not everything that they're saying to you is actually how they're feeling. And we do that. We'll say something, but there's something else going on behind as well. You know, I don't always tell my husband how I'm feeling, but he's got to be able to pick that up as a human being. And I think we're just not tuned into people anymore like we used to be.
Because we're time poor.
And we're reading off a screen how
And
someone
we're so
feels.
Exactly.
self-centered.
I think also with boys, maybe they just don't come to that place where they just want to spout, spew everything that's going on inside of their lives. So probably the types of questions that we need to ask them.
And the best thing I found, driving. Boys, have a conversation with your sons when you are driving down the road. They do not like eye contact. They hate it.
You're clever, Shona.
They
You've got all the
hate
tricks.
it. So we used to go for drives, and I used to take the long way home, and we'd sit there for a while, and then all of a sudden you'll just drop a question, and because we're not looking eyeball to eyeball, then the conversation would start.
Yeah, that's great, Shona. Definitely some good practical tips there. Look, these are some serious matters, and if you're feeling not yourself, if suicidal thoughts are coming your way, or you know someone who's thinking of suicide or just different in their mannerisms or whatever it is, check out Lifeline, call Beyond Blue, speak to someone, speak to your local minister, just get out there and speak to someone, because your life matters, and, God loves you. At the end of the day, God loves you. So,
Amen.
Yeah.